Well, hello there. I wanted to come on. I do this every few months. I wanted to come on and let you know about what resources I have available that are free. And I wanted to talk to you about the AT parenting community, which is opening up its doors today and closes on Thursday. And a lot of people don't understand what resources I have available. And when you're raising kids with anxiety or OCD, it's really overwhelming. It's overwhelming in general. So to know what kind of support you have can feel overwhelming as well. So for those of you that don't know me, most of you know me because I am streaming this in a lot of different areas. So I am streaming this in my public Facebook group, my profile, the series Facebook group that I've just done, and YouTube, I believe, quite a lot of different places. And so most of you know my work a little bit, but for those of you that don't, my name is Natasha Daniels, and I am an anxiety and OCD child therapist. That's my dog. And I also have three kids who struggle with different forms of anxiety and OCD. And I have my own anxiety, social anxiety issues, actually. And I make resources for parents to support you in the trenches while you're raising your kids with anxiety or OCD. Because when you were raising kids with anxiety or OCD, I found that we have about four common issues out of all the things that happen. I've noticed this in my practice, I've noticed in my online communities that these are the commonalities that we have when we're raising kids with anxiety or OCD. One, we feel alone. There's a lot of isolation that comes with raising a child with anxiety or OCD. We feel like we're watching everybody else have their milestones, and they're celebrating and they're talking about things. The first day of school happened for a lot of people, especially in the US, and watching those Facebook posts of everybody with their little signs of first grade and third grade and eighth grade. That can be very triggering and overwhelming for those of us that have kids that don't go to school very easily and are having a lot of anxiety or OCD. So the isolation can be pretty intense. The second thing that happens is a lot of times there is a lack of access to treatment. And so parents in the US and globally can struggle to find a pediatric anxiety or OCD therapist. Especially OCD therapists are very hard to find in the pediatric world. And so that can become a really big issue, is you just don't have access to therapy, whether it's too expensive, or there's no one in your area, or you can't find that specialty. That could be a problem. The third thing I see is just this idea of like, what is my role? So even if you are in therapy and you have a good, solid support system, there are times where it's just like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. My child comes to me for reassurance, and I know with OCD that I'm filling a loop and I'm adding to the compulsion, but I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Or my child's having a meltdown at bedtime, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I know it's anxiety or OCD related, but like, what's my job in that? And so that can be really confusing. And the last thing that I think is still a struggle is that our kids feel alone. And so there's a lot of stigma still around anxiety and OCD, especially OCD, and then not knowing, how do we remove that stigma? How do we make our kids feel less alone, which will help open them up and motivate them to work on their anxiety or OCD? So how do we do that? So I do offer a lot of free resources. So most of you know that I have a YouTube channel. I'm actually streaming this on my YouTube channel, so those people know. And I make videos for kids and teens and young adults directly so that they can watch those things. I actually recently put my podcast on my YouTube channel because YouTube's doing that now. And so that's available. Those are free. I make them every Thursday. You'll see videos up on different topics. You can actually search my channel, and you can find that. If you go to YouTube and you just search Natasha Daniels OCD, you'll find my channel and that support. So that's weekly. I also have my podcast that's weekly as well. So Tuesday, a podcast episode comes out. Thursday, a YouTube video comes out. And the podcast is for parents and therapists to talk about different topics around anxiety or OCD. Again, that's free and it comes out every Tuesday. So I have that going on. And then I created an online school to really go deep and create on-demand courses. So at atparentingsurvivalschool.com, I have courses that you can take. So how to teach kids to crush anxiety, how to teach kids to crush OCD. A recent one is OCD course for kids and teens, so they can learn how to do that stuff directly. I have difficult behavior class for anxiety and OCD, sleep ones, a whole bunch of different things, social anxiety. And so those are on demand, and you can take those, and you can leave comments and ask me questions in the course. but it is pretty much an on-demand, on your own study. And that's really been helpful for people to like fill in the missing gaps. But in 2019, well, way before 2019, I would get a lot of requests for more in-depth support. A lot of people reached out to me and they were like, "Can I work with you?" And many of you know that I actually closed my practice in 2021 after the sudden death of my husband. And so even before that, my practice was getting smaller. But after he passed away, I closed my practice and I just decided I'm going to solely focus on providing online global support to parents who need that extra support or need someone to help them fill in the gap. There's all sorts of reasons why people need that extra support. So I had created in 2019, actually before he passed away, the AT parenting community, which is supposed to be a much more in-depth support than my online courses. My podcast, my YouTube are very like surface. There's only so much you can do through a podcast or YouTube. And so those are very surface supports. But the AT parenting community is in-depth support. And so when I created the AT parenting community, I wanted to address those four issues. And so I want to kind of walk you through what is in the AT parenting community, because a lot of times people think, and this kind of upsets me sometimes when, especially if a member thinks this, the AT parenting community is not a Facebook group. We have a member only Facebook group. Yes. And I actually do have a large public Facebook group, which I'm actually streaming in right now, which has 35,000 parents in it. But that is a very big group. I'm not in there because it's way too hard. I have admins that go in there and make sure that it is, friendly as it can be. But that is really for parents to support parents on a very big scale. The AT parenting community is a more intimate group. And feel free to ask questions if you have them as you're watching this, or if you watch it on the replay, because I'm happy to answer them. But we do have a member only Facebook group. That is a very small side dish to everything else. So I wanted to address the four issues. So the first one was feeling alone. And that is why I did create a member only Facebook group. So when you join the community, it is a membership. So when people join the community, they get access to that Facebook group. It is small. There's normally about 1,000 parents in there. And it's easier to like get to know people and to get connected because it is a small group of people who are raising kids with anxiety or OCD. The parents in there have kids of all ages. We have an eclectic group of parents who have toddlers, preschoolers, middle schoolers, teenagers, young adults, even into the 20s. Because as long as they are impacting you and you're the parent and you're trying to help your child, the community is for you. We also have a lot of parents in there who have comorbid conditions. And so they have kids. We have autistic kids who have anxiety or OCD. We have kids who have pandas and pans. We have kids who have ADHD or Tourette's or all sorts of comorbid conditions, because that's kind of the nature of the beast, is that often our kids are going to have other struggles as well. So I like that we're all at different stages, and because we're able to support each other. Those of us that have older kids, we know what it was like to have an anxious toddler. And so there is that communal support that I like. So there's the Facebook group, which is a separate one from all of the other Facebook groups I have. There is a member website, and in the member website, there is a forum. And the forums, you have to put a password to get into the member website. And so it's private, and you can get direct support from other parents in there as well. There is also support group calls. So once a month, we have monthly support group calls where we jump on Zoom and everybody gets to support each other. And it's just putting faces to stories and knowing that you're not alone is really, really helpful. So that was the first issue, was feeling alone. I think people in the AT parenting community do not feel alone. They know that the things that they're struggling with are things that other people struggle with. And I notice we even have new members coming in now because we just opened the doors today. And people are posting like, who else is struggling with contamination OCD? And like, everyone's like, yeah, I deal with that too. I deal with that too. Who has moral OCD? Like there's everybody, there's something for everyone, because we all are struggling with different issues. And so somebody's going to relate to what you're dealing with. But the next issue was that lack of connection to resources, that barrier to therapeutic support. A lot of therapists actually refer parents and families to the AT parenting community because it's nice to know that your family that you're working with is getting that extra support. And so we do have a lot of families in there that have really amazing OCD therapists or anxiety therapists, and they were referred by their therapist. And we actually have some therapists in the group because we have a therapist membership and they get a little extra stuff. And so we have some therapists in there as well. Um, but we do have a lot of families who can't access therapy, whether their child refuses to go to therapy, they can't afford therapy, or they can't find an OCD or anxiety specialist. Especially OCD, like I said, is super hard. And so I fill in the gap for that as well, because I am choking on my pancakes from a couple of minutes ago. Um, I am an anxiety and OCD therapist. And so I do help with that. I made like a little list so I don't forget the things that I offer, because the AT parenting community is so big that a lot of times I forget all the things that we actually give to you. When you become a member of the AT parenting community, I gift you free access to some of my big courses for free. And I do that on purpose because I want you to get supercharged with information right from the get-go. Because in the AT parenting community, we have very advanced discussions about OCD treatment, anxiety treatment, and I want to get you up, to snuff with your knowledge. And so you get free access to one of my big classes. So that is how to teach kids to crush OCD, or how to teach kids to crush anxiety, or how to teach kids to crush social anxiety. So you pick which one is your biggest issue. If you're dealing with OCD and anxiety, I normally say take the OCD class, because there's something you probably are missing about OCD, because it's very nuanced and anxiety is much more intuitive. And I am there to support people in finding out and figuring out which course would be the best one for them to get the free access to. Separate from that, I also gift you guys free access to how to handle difficult behavior caused by anxiety or OCD, my moral OCD course, my sensory anxiety course. I have a space program course, Ellie Leibowitz's space program study guide, that is a parent-only approach to pulling back your accommodations. So you get about $380 worth of my courses, and you get free access to those. Not that you have to take all of those at one time, but to have those in-depth courses that are $127 each at your fingertips is really helpful. A lot of times people take the Crushing OCD course first if they're dealing with OCD, and then they really have all this great knowledge. If they're not ready for that, that's okay, but that's available to you. The other thing is people can reach me, on tap. And so, like I said, I closed my private practice after my husband died. And so this is my full-time job. And we have forums in the member website, and people can directly ask me questions. And so I have ongoing discussions with people as an extra support. So they'll say, we're having this, or I don't know what exposures to do, or they'll say, we have no diagnosis, but this is going on and this is going on. What would be our next step? And the nice thing is I can go back, and actually I was doing this morning. Someone was asking me a question, and I went back and I looked at all the different questions that she asked over the past year to get kind of like a diagnostic impression. Not that I'm her therapist, but I like to have the full, picture. And then I was able to comment on her current question based on some of the things that she had already told me in the past. So I take a lot of effort and time to respond to people. And a lot of people keep one thread going, and they'll just ask me questions, which actually is really nice, because then I don't have to bounce around and go to their profile to see what questions they've already asked me. But they get in-depth, clinically sound suggestions and guidance from me in the forums. And I'm there Monday through Friday, like 8 to 4 p.m. my time, Mountain Standard Time, every day. And I try to keep some boundaries, but most of the time on the weekends, I'm not doing much, to be honest with you. And so I normally get back to people within a few hours, if not within an hour, if I'm just sitting here, which is often. So to get like a therapist on tap, a lot of times I've had parents who are having a crisis and they can't reach their therapist, or it's the weekend, or they don't know what to do and they don't have a therapist. And to have someone who has some clinically sound expertise at your fingertips is, to me, gold, right? I mean, especially how expensive therapists are. So that is another thing that people have as far as the access to help. We also have weekly classes. And so the members vote on topics. And then every single Friday, we do a Zoom call where we have normally a pretty nice, intimate group of people where I teach on a topic that they picked. And so you pick the topic, you say, I'm struggling with this. We vote on it in the Facebook group. And then I teach on that. So it's an hour class. And a lot of people work in the middle of the day and they can't attend these Zoom calls. We record them and we upload the replay to the member website. And so you get a fresh live class on a different topic every week. And the cool thing is you get the library of all the classes that we've ever done. And we've been doing this since 2019. And so that's a lot of classes. So we probably have, I mean, my guess is probably over 100 hours of or more of classes, which you obviously don't want to watch all of those, but we have a search feature and you can search a topic and boom, all of a sudden you have this wealth of information and classes on that very specific topic. So it becomes a really good directory for you as well. The other thing that we do um, is I'm not going to get to that. Well, I'll talk about that now. We have worksheets. When I created the AT Parenting Community, I created worksheets that you could do with your kids. I created videos for your kids. And so there is like a library on our member website full of resources. I don't like people to get overwhelmed though. I normally tell them just come into the forums and just ask me questions and I will guide you. So a lot of times parents will come back into the forums and they'll say, we're dealing with this right now. And I'll say, okay, watch this video, try this at home, and then come back and tell me how it went. And so there's this ongoing dialogue of guidance, which can be really helpful. Okay, so that was about feeling alone. That was about resources. The third one is like, what's my role in all this? OCD and anxiety don't live in a bubble. It involves us. It's a family affair. And so how do you handle that? What do you do? What's your role? And so you'll get a lot of support with that. On the Zoom calls, you'll get a lot of support with that. You'll get support from other parents who will say, this is what I've done, and this is what's helped. You get the one-on-one forums with me for support. The course will teach you exactly what your role is. So in my course, How to Teach Kids to Crush OCD, or How to Teach Kids to Crush Anxiety or Social Anxiety, which you can get on your own. You can purchase those if you don't want to be in a membership or you don't want to be in a community. You can get those at atparentingsurvivalschool.com. But in those classes, I walk you through, this is your role. Like, this is what you do as a parent. And so I teach you first all the education that you really need to have about the topic. And then I talk about, not being the OCD police, but how do you validate your child's concerns without reassuring? And how do we do all these things? How do you set up ERP at home? How do you maintain progress? All of those things that we want to know are in the course. In fact, when my practice was open, I would gift the courses to my clients because it actually saved me time. If I could have a family come and watch a 3-hour course and then save like 6 sessions because I don't have to teach them, it would catapult therapy and it would speed it up. And I actually have a lot of therapists who will buy the commercial version of these courses and they'll use it in their practice. And so you won't question what your role is once you take that course, which I think is really helpful. I mean, if you have questions, you just ask me in the forums, which can be helpful too. The last thing I want to talk about is your child feeling alone. And so I have created, so I always had the YouTube channel, which I felt like helped a little bit normalize different topics for kids and teens and young adults. But in the AT parenting community, it wasn't initially, there was no resources for kids or teens when I first created it. But I am always surveying the community. I'm always asking what else people need. It's always growing. The community creates a lot of the ideas. So we've added a lot of stuff that wasn't there originally. And one of those is the support group call for kids and teens. So those are 2 separate calls. We have them broken out into ages. And so we have a call for kids and a call for teens. We normally have, I would say, about 15 to 20 kids join on each call, which is really incredible because they're really brave kids and the bulk of them are super educated. And so they will give each other advice. If it's really clinically unsound, I will like gently give alternatives and try to make sure that we're therapeutically, giving good advice. But most of the time I don't have to do that because the kids are incredibly supportive. We have kids who are too overwhelmed to join. So they turn their video off, they turn their audio off, and they just listen. And that still goes a long way in normalizing and validating their struggles, that they're not alone. So the support group calls are really helpful. And then over the years, people wanted to connect in between the support group calls. And so we created a buddy program. And we don't want to really babysit a buddy program, but we want to connect people. And so we created a sheet, a Google Doc where parents can look at and they can add their kid's name, where it would have like the age or the location or the anxiety or OCD themes or the hobbies that they liked, and connect them to another child or children that are very similar. And then the parents have to flesh out, like, what does this look like? What are our boundaries? How are they going to connect? We don't do that, but we just make the connections. And the parents were like, hey, we want a buddy program too. And so we did eventually create a buddy program for parents. And so We have parents in all 50 states of the US and in a lot of countries globally. We have a lot of parents from the United Kingdom, from Canada, from Australia, New Zealand. We've had parents from Israel, Dubai. I'm trying to think. We've had parents from Hong Kong, all over the world. And so it's very cool to find somebody in your neighborhood. And normally there's at least a handful of people in your neighborhood that probably belong to the community. I know that's crazy, but that's true, especially in the United States. But even Canada, you're probably going to find a lot of people in Canada and the UK and Australia, although Australia is very big. So it depends. So that connection is really helpful. So the buddy program has been helpful with that. Um, and I think that's about it. So if you have questions about the AT parenting community, please feel free to ask me. The reason why we open the doors and then we close them is because it is very overwhelming when we have new people coming in all the time. It can be a little disruptive. And so I like to just work with the group that we have. And then when we open up the doors, we're all ready as members to bring new people in. We carve out more time to answer more questions. We do a welcome Zoom call for all the new members. And so we want to do it right. I don't want people coming in all the time and then they're not getting, that welcome mat and they're not feeling like they're new, like it can be a little overwhelming. And I think that's more my social anxiety, which I get. Like, I think you want to really feel like you're welcomed into a group. And so we open up the doors every about 4 times a year. So it's like every 3 months. And then we have a wait list. And if the wait list gets really big, if the wait list gets over 200, we will open it up in between, which normally does happen, but not always. So it is open now and it does close on Thursday at 9 p.m. Pacific. And so you can learn more. Let me just put this link here. You can learn more at atparentingcommunity.com. That website actually will walk you exactly through all the different things I said are included. A lot of people who are like, I just wanted a support group. I haven't been able to find a support group, and to have one online sounds really nice. A support group can be about $30 or $40 a month. And so if you're interested in just the support group, there's still value in joining the community just for that. I've had parents who say, I really just want to take your courses. And I would love to be able to kind of run them by you or have more of a dialogue with you. And I'm going to get free access to a lot of them. It's worth joining the community. Sometimes they do that and then they never leave, because we actually have one member who did that a long time ago and never left because they're like, I really like the community. I wasn't expecting that. And so I don't want to let it go now. So even if you're finding only one of those areas is what you need, it's still a lot of value, because one class is $127. Membership's $30 a month. And so to get those access to the classes and access to the community is worth it. Some people will just say, I just want access to you. And even though you're not my therapist, my therapist, $350. It would just be nice to have that clinical expertise on tap. So it doesn't matter what you need, because you can't really immerse yourself in everything all at once. It's such a huge wealth of resources, but it's worth its value even if you tap into one thing at a time. So I hope that you found that helpful. If you have questions, feel free to leave them in the comments or leave them afterwards, and I will circle back and make sure to answer them. You can learn more and you can sign up at atparentingcommunity.com. The doors close on Thursday at 9 p.m. And I look forward to inviting some of you in there. All right. Take care.